This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the podcast today, Austin Allred.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I've been excited to have you on the podcast for a while now.
Yeah, we've talked about it since you started it, probably.
Yeah.
Or before.
Yeah, for sure. Now, one of the reasons why I can't just have you on here is because you live in Royal, Washington, right?
Yep. It's a little hop and a skip away.
So what's Royal like?
Royal City is small, so about 4,000 people. One solid restaurant, a couple Mexican food restaurants. So it's farming. It's totally based around farming. It's in the middle of this Washington state. Football, farming, the school, everything kind of revolves around the school.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's kind of what you think of a little town. Everyone knows everybody. Everyone's good to each other, but there's a lot of people in your business, and that's probably how it's not a bad thing all the way. Keeps you honest.
So how many family members do you have up there?
I have 6 siblings that live in Royal City, and then, I don't know, if 20 or 25 different cousins, and now they all have families pretty much too.
Yeah.
So Royal City's full of Allreds.
Right. Then you get you get Sam up there every now and again, right? Sam Christensen and.
Oh yeah, Sam. he grew up there.
Yeah.
So you got Sam, and there's 3 or 4 kind of primary families that just have tons of people, kind of like the Allreds. Yeah. And Sam comes from another one of those families, the Christensens. And
is your family the biggest family that's up there, like numbers wise, or?
Christensens would compete. Allreds. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot. Browns.
Yeah.
There's a few big families around.
Oh, cool. Is that because farming families kind of stick together?
As far as business goes, farming is very much a generational conversation. Like, I was just having it with my brother-in-law yesterday. We're like, hey, what's your plans with all this business stuff you're doing? And it really does. In farming, probably almost more than anything else, you are thinking about the next generation and almost everything. Yeah. Because, frankly, I don't think there's a lot of people who can get started on farming without some support from the last generation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think so. I think it kind of just lends itself to a family gig that's going to go on to the next and the next and the next. And so generally that's what's happened, especially the last couple generations. And we'll see if things take a change. But for now, it's pretty typical.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a beautiful area, right? Living up there.
Yeah,
I know it's cold right now.
It's cold right now. It's just white. But no, I love it.
Because Royal's kind of like I've been up there, but it's like a big valley, right?
Yeah, Royal's in a big valley.
Kind of rolling hills. And
yep. High desert.
Yeah.
Sagebrush everywhere. It's kind of like the prairie, but high desert style.
Yeah. One thing I thought was fun was when I was there, you took me on like the freaking Grand Tour, right? Which was so freaking cool.
Little horse ride.
Yeah, dude, you're the first person I've rode a horse with since I was like 12. So, I think I FaceTimed my family when I was on the horse, and they were just freaking loving it, dude. They still talk about that every day.
You got to bring them out. It would be fun.
Yeah. I'm actually getting to a point now where I'm not so freaking busy in the summer, so I can actually bring them up there. So two of my other businesses, summer's like when we got to get everything done.
Yeah.
So it's always been like wildly, like actually Royal High School, we just redid that.
Yeah.
Was that last year we did that?
2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Holy crap. It's been a minute. How's that look?
Good.
Does it look good?
Yeah.
Because they kind of gutted a lot of the school, right?
Yeah, and they're still kind of in the middle of the, what are they doing right now? Middle school? But
it's on the same grounds?
Yeah, the district's all one big kind of campus.
Yeah. Do you ever go to games?
Oh, yeah. Everybody in Royal goes to games.
Oh, do you?
Yep. It's what you do if you're not doing anything else. And you're usually not doing anything else.
No, I love that. So let's backtrack a little bit because I had Will on. Did you listen to his podcast?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I like Will, dude.
Oh, Will's a stud.
Will's a good dude.
Way.
I learned some stuff about him in the podcast, which actually extends to you because you guys both played rugby together at BYU, right?
Yeah.
So tell me about that. How successful were you guys?
Will was more successful at it. Like he took it farther, and he went on a mission, came back, and Will was one of the few people who came back from his mission more athletic than he left on his mission. So I got back from a mission, and I was like fat and slow. So it took me a bit to get back into it. But before my mission, I was way better than Will, 100%. Way more athletic, stronger, better looking. After my mission, he kind of figured it out. So, and then he took it all the way. But for me, it was fun. It was blast, right? The people, the guys you're playing with, the team sport. I always played sports growing up. I went to BYU with, I mean, I think I was pretty honest with myself, but I was kind of hopeful that I'd get something on the football team. So I went to the tryouts. I talked to the coaches a little bit beforehand, but nothing legitimate. And then went there, no surprise, didn't make it. And then rugby, I had a couple cousins that had done rugby, and the coaches would hang out at the football tryouts, kind of, pick on some of the guys that they knew didn't have any other options. And no, it was fun. So I really probably couldn't have written up a better script for my freshman year, especially because you had the team aspect, the social part of it, working out. You were working out with the team, which I was trying not to gain, get fat or whatever, get lazy. So, but it wasn't an overcommitment, right? I think if I would have started football and that my mindset right then, I probably would have quit because I was kind of past that. But rugby, a little less commitment, but still just enough to kind of keep me motivated, keep me moving forward. So,
and your teams are really good, right?
Yeah. So I played just 2 years before I got married, and we won national championship both times.
Yeah. How many national championships did Will get? Did you get 4?
I think Will got 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, hearing about it was just like, what the freak? I didn't realize you guys were like national championship winners.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It's such a blast, and the sport is cool.
Did you learn it after the football tryout stuff?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I had never played rugby. I'd watched it a couple times, but yeah, just learned it on the fly.
Isn't that wild? So
it is.
I played at Highland High School for like 2 or 3 months before I went on my mission.
Oh.
Right? That was intense, man. You know Highland High School.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, that's for the movie, right?
Yeah, the movie from
Forever
there.
Strong.
Yeah. Their coach was amazing.
Was he your coach too?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so this would have been 2000.
So when was the movie made? Ish.
2010.
Oh, so it was.
I think he still had like another 8 or 9, maybe 10. I don't even know. I'm trying to remember when he retired. It's not something I talk about very often, right? Because I didn't finish the season out or anything like that. I think we only had like 4 or 5 matches, and I think I kind of stopped playing. I got my mission call. That's kind of what happened, right? And then I was just like, I'm going to focus my energy into this. And I wouldn't say I was a bad rugby player, but I definitely wasn't one of their stars. But like I was one of the big boys in the scrum, though. Like that helped, And they had some guys from, I'm trying to remember. I think they had a New Zealander on the team and a couple of other guys from around the world, and they were so fast, dude, and just played it their whole lives. But I love it, man. Like there's that documentary about the All Blacks on Amazon, I think. Dude, I love it.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched that one?
I think I watched part of it.
Yeah, it's kind of like a behind the scenes, like the locker room type stuff.
Yeah, I watched part of it.
Yeah, those dudes are tough.
Rugby does breed some tough dudes. Just like there's some stories even from BYU of guys our national championship game my freshman year, which I was right there in the mix of the top 22, which in rugby you only have 7 subs.
Yeah.
There's only 22 guys, 15 are playing at a time. You can't sub in and out. If you're out, you're out. And if you run out of your 22, I think you're just SOL.
Yeah.
So I was right there in the mix, but a kid who was better than me played. He was in the 22, so he was kind of the backup to the starting wing. Anyway, he ended up playing completely dislocated and broke his jaw to the point where his, between his 2 front teeth was an inch gap. So his mouth was just kind of separating.
Ugh.
Came to the sideline and went back in. Like just the stuff that, you hear a lot of stories about, but it's just not realistic. Like in football, that doesn't happen. If you get injured, you're hurt. In most sports, you just But in rugby, it's still just common. And then there's stories of, guys just stitches on the sideline in the middle of the game and then you go back in and play. Just little stuff like that. It's just a little bit more rugged than most sports.
Yeah.
Even still.
Do you ever watch it anymore?
As much as I can, yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever it's on, I'll watch it.
It's actually hard to watch, right?
Yeah, just international channels if you have those, I guess. But
yeah.
Or
some YouTube highlights.
Yeah, that's what I usually end up doing. Yeah. But it's not a lot of times where like the U.S. team's playing and you can find it on ESPN or something. It's rare.
Yeah. Do you have a team you follow, like in the leagues?
Not really. No. I mean,
what's the one where England, New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa all play?
That's the World Cup, right? Or no? Are you talking like just a league over there or something?
No, those 4 countries play like every 4 years or something.
I don't know. I should
like
find out.
It's called like the Sevens or something like that.
Also, Sevens is a little different. Like that's its own sport. Like rugby Sevens is
maybe I'm wrong.
Technically, that's what's in the Olympics.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Sevens is in the Olympics, and it's just kind of a little bit faster pace, but it's just half the guys on the field.
Oh, okay.
Versus like technical rugby.
I need a Jamie in here from like the Rogan show, right? Where I can be like, hey, look this thing up.
Yeah.
No, there's something with those 4 countries, and maybe there's 6 countries, but I'm pretty sure it's those 4, and they play a tournament every like 4 years where it's just those 4 teams, those 4 clubs, or 4 national teams. So, anyways, I'm obviously haven't watched it in a minute.
Yeah, me too.
So when you were at BYU, did you? I know you did, but what degree did you end up getting?
Business management.
Okay.
Marriott School.
Is that what you started in?
I'm like most freshmen. I don't know what I started in.
Yeah.
Say you're going to do your generals and figure it out. That's kind of what I did. But yeah, I was always working towards business for sure.
Yeah.
I had to retake some classes before I got into business school because, like most freshmen, I wasn't really committed.
Yeah, that happens. Did you know you were going to go into farming?
I'd say the majority of my college time I did, but I definitely at the beginning was kind of sniffing out maybe like an attorney or some of the other routes for a minute.
Yeah. I
don't know how serious I was, but for a while there, I had a brother-in-law that was an attorney, and I was like, yeah, it'd be fun to go do stuff with him. But after pretty much most of the time, I was ready to go learn all I could and then move back to Royal City and branch off and farm.
Yeah. That's awesome. How valuable do you think your college degree is?
I think it's important. I mean, for me, it was like a confidence thing, like just to be able to go back and have the confidence to run a business. Not everyone needs that kind of confidence boost, but I think I probably did, to feel like I was capable and, probably worthy almost to move home and to farm. I'd probably have kind of this feeling about just getting a gimme or something, that I wouldn't feel good about. So for me, that was probably the biggest thing there was, just a confidence boost. I was talking to somebody a couple of days ago about college, and I think probably 25% of what I learned, I wish I would have learned better. But then the rest of it, I don't think it'll ever cross my mind again.
Yeah. Yeah. I get a lot of discussions with guys about college. That's why I'm interested in what you have to say.
Yeah.
Because do you think that the degree, does it apply well to your line of work now?
Like I said, like 25% probably does, like the accounting class and some of the economics principles, I think probably have helped me form and shape maybe the organizational skills I do have to help me in business. But the specifics and did I need the college? Like, I think I'd probably be more on the side of the fence of encouraging people. Like, if they have that kind of confidence, to me, that's what it was. Like, I needed the confidence. I need that degree to kind of say, like, yeah, I'm a college graduate. I deserve to be here, which is unfortunate, and I think I'm growing out of that a little bit. But especially at that age, being young, I needed that.
Yeah.
And that's probably if I was kind of talking to my kids or someone I cared about who was considering it, if their personality needed that, then by all means, I think it's a great thing. But if they don't, there's a million ways to learn it, and experience is the best. So if you don't need that kind of confidence boost or whatever, then I don't know if I'd encourage that person.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel, to me, mentorship's like one of the best things to do, right?
Yeah.
Even if you hire a mentor, right? For example, like when I hired, we hired a business consultant freaking forever ago, right? And he came in, and I learned so much from this dude, like a lot in Excel, a lot of accounting principles from him, and kind of like managerial accounting where you hold people accountable through the numbers of the business. And it was funny, man, I just don't remember anything in college being anywhere close to that.
Yeah.
You know, it just seemed like it was a lot of theory.
And I'd agree with you, I think. So you just hired a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting concept.
Well, I think
awesome.
we hired a consultant and I turned him into a mentor.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, because when he was there, I was just blasting with questions all day, and
which is awesome. And that's
because most people think you need to go like find someone wealthy and like shadow them and that kind of stuff. I actually think it's better if you can bring in somebody to help you, even if you have like a CPA that's really good, an external one, and just blast them with questions.
Yeah,
right? Just figure out their expertise and their knowledge level and try to apply it to yourself.
Yeah, that's a lot of how my businesses are set up. When you say it, I have probably 7 or 8 consultants, and a couple are vets, a couple are nutritionists, so they apply directly to like what I do. Yeah. But then there's some others that are just equipment guys. There's just every category has somebody who gets paid just to kind of be around, which is interesting. I've never kind of looked at it like that way. Just a bunch of mentors for us.
Yeah, tap into them, right?
Yeah.
So, so after college, you got married during college, right?
Yep. Ended my junior year or something.
All right, cool. I'm going to ask you some questions about being married later, being relating to success. So when you went back to Royal, how did you get into your business? Because it's an interesting story, and how has that grown from then to now?
My business? Mm-hmm. So my family's potato farmers, fruit farmers, like that's what I did growing up. That's what my dad kind of started, and kind of the homestead would be based around potatoes, fruit, apples, cherries, more row cropping. And then about when I graduated is when the local dairy farm kind of came up for sale. And so my dad and we jumped on that in a small way, like we became partners with the previous owner. And then I worked for him for a few years. And he's probably one of my primary mentors, like him and my dad. Yeah. Obviously, my dad's always going to be on top of the list, but this guy was awesome as far as dairy farming and helped me understand. And I went to work for him in Texas for a while. Worked for him, obviously, in Royal on the farm that I've now purchased from him. And that's kind of how I got my start with kind of the family farm, but a little bit of an offshoot of the family farm. It's a dairy farm, which, if you know much about ag, having cows and ruminants in the mix of a farm helps you be way more sustainable, helps you be way more closed loop. It's a total synergy.
Yeah.
So that's why my dad was interested in becoming a part of this dairy farm when it came up. And for me, it was much more than that. Like, I was interested in working with the family farm, obviously, because that's awesome in so many ways. But beyond that, I loved the dairy farm. In high school, I worked for this guy, and I loved the team aspect of the dairy farm, where you don't get that so much in the row cropping. Like, you're on a tractor, you're thinning apples, whatever. Yeah. But when you went to the dairy farm, you're always working with 3 or 4 guys, checking cattle, doing that. And so I liked that part. And then I just liked the cattle, liked the cows. So it was such a perfect opportunity for me. And then it's kind of a good marriage between the family farm and what I'm doing. So I'm still part of the family farm in a lot of ways, but branched off in just what I see as almost, ideal scenario.
Yeah. And are you the sole owner of the dairy?
So that dairy, my dad has some.
Yeah.
And then since then, I've bought another dairy, a few more like cattle operations. We got a whole ranch now, and I would say I've kind of come full circle to where there's a time there where I was pretty like, I got to be my own owner. Like, I'm buying this, and I did, and I buy all these things, and I'm kind of growing, I guess, in some ways individually, or just my own family, my wife, and I've kind of come full circle to where I realize if I have some partners, if I have some collaboration, then my opportunities are a lot bigger and a lot faster. So And just in the last couple of years, I've kind of come full circle, and I've kind of been the one initiating kind of these partnerships with my family and with other people to kind of help, one, progression happen faster, and two, I think my own mental health, if you will, like my own time commitment be less stressful.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you did that transaction, did he wanted to basically mentor you up to sell the dairy to you, right?
Yeah.
Did he exit?
He did. Yeah, Nelson.
Was he a local guy or was he?
No.
He's a Texan, right?
Well, he is now. He grew up in he's the highest IQ of dairy, I think, out there. Like if you take dairy IQ, this guy's the guy.
Yeah.
And so he graduated college and he bought this farm in Royal City, which was kind of random, but it was just kind of for sale, had some challenges with it. He took it on. He turned it around really in a quick, efficient, made it awesome, which there's a lot, anyway, details would be less than intriguing for most there, but he turned it around, and then he had bigger plans. This guy, he can't be confined. Washington State's hard to be ag. It's a pretty liberal state in that regard. So just like any business, there's a lot of red tape. So he ended up moving to Texas, moving to Texas, and now he's blown up. I think he's the biggest dairy farmer in the world now.
Oh, is he really?
He milks, I don't know. He wouldn't want me to say, but hundreds of thousands of cows, which is crazy. I know for a lot of people there's no context or relation, but
well, so for example, like how big is your dairy in comparison, like national wise?
National or like in the state of Washington?
Well, state of Washington.
State of Washington, I'm probably one of the top 3 biggest dairy farmers, and I milk about 12,000 cows.
Okay.
National, you go to Idaho, that's a big farm. No matter where you're at, that's a lot of cows. But there's a few guys like my old partner, and there's probably 3 or 4 of those guys that are kind of in a league of their own as far as milking cows. Mm-hmm. But I'm probably whatever as far as numbers of cows milking, the top 5 percentile or something.
Yeah. It's like you have a big farm.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
At least when I was there, I was like way bigger than I was expecting.
Yeah, for most people it's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah. You're going to remind me, how many cows are born a day in yours?
50.
Was it 50 now?
Yeah.
Well, that's up a little bit, right?
Well, we never really went to my secondary farm, so 50 collectively with both farms.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So 25 at the one we were at, 30.
See, one thing that was hilarious, right? So when we were there was 2 baby calves that were born with us standing in the pen.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Remember you pulling that one out?
Not.
I'm sure you do it all the time. Yeah. One was kind of like the legs were just kind of out, so you pulled it out. Yeah, you're funny because you're like, I wish I had a 6'7" friend that could help me pull this out. And I was just videoing you. I was like, nah, bro, that's gross. And then right as you got that cow out, I turned around and one just plopped out of another one. I was just like, this is insane.
Did I have you check for twins or anything? No? Oh, shoot. You'll have to come back.
Oh, yeah.
Each animal we check for twins, because if they have twins, they'll need some help on the second one.
Oh, okay.
So usually when I have friends around, like if something happened, because we run them into a chute, and then you go in and check real quick, put a glove onto your shoulder and check it out. I'm surprised I didn't. We must have been in a hurry somewhere.
Well, it was like the end of the day. I think it was dark.
Oh.
Yeah. So, no, it's amazing up there. You also have your own rip.
My own rip. Oh yeah.
It's Tyler, right?
Tyler, yes. He doesn't know that he's just like if Rip was Rip, he wouldn't know he was Rip, right? Like he wouldn't watch Yellowstone. And Tyler's the same way, so he has no idea what I'm talking about.
You never seen Yellowstone?
No. I'm like, hey, you're Rip. He's like, I don't know what that
is. Yeah, you're right. That's. Do you think with Yellowstone? I didn't even think about this until right now, but like with the show Yellowstone, has that given any spotlight to you guys at all, or?
Oh, I think so. I think it's kind of primed the overall customer to be more intrigued with kind of our lifestyle and what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I think so. I think it has, like I said, primed my customer, because now we're doing a beef brand, and we got some different brands that we're building off on. Yeah. And I'm definitely not offended with Yellowstone of kind of building that hype.
Yeah.
Kind of working off it the best I can.
So when you watch Yellowstone, do you roll your eyes or do you think it's fun?
Both.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot of bullshit. I mean, the whole like famous scene where it's just like, F it. Boss, we've sat here and it's just F it. You know what I'm talking about? The scene where they're gathering cattle?
Oh, yeah.
Hell no. That is never the case. It doesn't work like that.
It's like, remember the show Suits?
Yeah.
Yeah, my friends who are attorneys go bananas. They're like, it never goes like that. I'm like, I know, dude. They got to fit it in an hour. You guys drag shit out for freaking 3 years.
That's your incentive to drag it out.
Like, I remember one of the opening seasons, they go in and he negotiates Darren Williams' contract, like this, like, trick the guy into, like, signing this contract, blah, blah, blah. And, like, it just made me laugh because I was just like, oh, man, if anyone knew how this actually worked.
Yeah.
It's just, like, ridiculous.
No, yeah.
But
yeah, it's kind of like that, but it's still fun to watch. It's still intriguing.
Because you have, so on your farm, you don't have, like, a bunk house, right? You have, like, trailer houses all over the place for you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, so, we have a few cowboys that work on the ranch side, and that's where Tyler comes in. I mean, he's the real deal, and he's got 2 or 3 guys that work with him that are the real deal. But a lot of who works on our farm, and mostly the dairy farm, are like first generation Hispanics who have come up here to get a sweet job, and they're living their dream. And so they live all around the farm, and we house most of them, but it's not like a bunkhouse. They have families, and they're starting their family and really working here to set up their family, which they're awesome people. If you ever watch my social media, I have a hard time like getting away from that. It's not like one of my core competencies on social media, but I always just go back to these guys are so amazing.
Yeah.
They're just family men, hard workers, and doing all that so that their kids can have a better shot than they did.
Yeah.
Cool.
How many employees do you guys have?
So on my operations, I probably have 125 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're all year round, right?
Yep, everything I do is all year round.
How much turnover do you have on employees?
Not very much. I'd put a lot of focus on our people just because I have tons of respect for them and I think it's the right thing. But yeah, not a ton. I think once they get started, and for the most part, you pay fair and do the little things to make it a good place to work for, then guys like to stick around.
Yeah. What are some of the perks working up there?
For like my employees, or for me, or from a perspective from employees? So a lot of these guys a lot of my employees came from like places where they had no energy, no running water. So I think there's a lot of perk in just living in America and having a lot of the stuff that we take for granted. But then, and having opportunities for family, I think is what they would say first thing, why the reason they're working so hard and why the reason they're doing it. Frankly, the work that most Americans don't want to do is the work that these guys are happy as hell to do.
Yeah.
And they're doing it because they're getting paid really well and setting it up their family. So we have a scholarship program for all the kids that have parents that work with us. So each of them have the opportunity for full rides to go wherever they, trade schools or anything kind of above high school. We do big Christmas parties, and honestly, one of the biggest perks I think is some of the stuff we do with we'll bring in some finance guys to kind of just teach, and some of these things that I think going through the education system like we have, in some ways, our education system does a terrible job, but in other ways, we have a little bit of a building blocks for basic economics and budgeting that I think we just at some point take for granted. So I really try to, introduce that to my crew, some of these basic budgeting. So we'll bring in some finance experts to really help them understand their 401k, and then to go next level if they want to on investment. And a few weeks ago, we brought in a guy just to talk about basic budgeting. Like you get your check, this much should go here, this much should go here, and then this is your spending cash. So little things like that I think, again, a lot of us know. Not a lot of Americans are good at it, but at least they should know. There's tons of resources. These guys didn't have any resources.
Right.
And most of these guys didn't graduate middle school. So those little things I think go long ways, because for me, another meeting, another one of those things, I'm just like, oh, bloody hell, it's like going back to school. But I do think these guys, they've never had it ever or been exposed to it. So I try to do that.
Yeah. And they're probably pretty grateful for that.
Yeah, I think so. I think they do like it a lot.
Do you interact with them a lot?
Yeah.
Employees?
Yeah, every day, all day. I mean, that's...
Yeah, I'll tell you, one thing I thought was, it made me laugh after, is when we went to your, what do you call it, the milking station?
The parlor?
Yeah, the parlor, there you go. The milking station. And I was like, I remember thinking like, oh, when do you guys ever close? You know, I said something like, do you guys ever close down, or like, do you have holidays off? And you kind of looked at me and smiled. You're like, no, bro, this is 24/7, like, never, ever stops. And I was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, why would this ever stop? But
yeah, that parlor you went into has not shut down since it opened and started in 2001.
you can expand it in it too, right?
Yeah, I've expanded it, and it didn't shut down.
Yeah.
We'd shut down one side for a couple of hours and shovel all the cows through another side, but never shut down.
Because they have to be milked every day, right? Doesn't it hurt them if they...
Yeah, so mastitis would be that's one of our primary concerns on the dairy side.
Yeah.
And if you get inconsistent on their milkings, mastitis will start to come.
How often can you milk them?
So we do everything 2 times a day. There's a lot of farms that'll do 3x milking 3 times a day. There's some farms that, like, in the first couple weeks after they have a baby, they'll actually milk them maybe even up to 6 times a day.
Oh, wow.
But there's some few strategies like that, but they're not very common. Usually 2x is the most common, so 2 times a day, and 3 times a day is next.
Is there a reason not to do it more or less?
So, I mean, there's probably a balance between, like, cow health. So you talk mastitis and some of these things that you got to be really conscientious of. On the other side, you're just trying to get the most out of your assets. Obviously the cows, but even just, so you got this $1 million barn, and you're trying to get the least work for the most milk, which is your commodity. So, so at some point you just kind of weigh your labor, weigh your, you know, the cows coming in more than 2 times a day versus 3 times a day, and just kind of work your formula that way.
Yeah. So with milking cows, do you, like when you guys have milk in your house, is it always from your farm, or do you get it from the grocery store?
Both. Mostly, no, we get it from the grocery store for the most part. Yeah. I do have raw milk, like, consistently, especially when I have babies that are getting weaned. I try to put them on raw milk for a time.
Oh, okay.
Just because I think it's good for their gut, going to get introduced to it. And I think if they do get introduced at that time, then they can drink it forever.
Yeah.
But out of convenience, most of the time we're just drinking Dairy Gold, which is who we sell to.
I was going to say, it's your milk, right?
It's possibly our milk.
Most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, though, because you go to these places, I mean, it's just rows and rows of cows, and guys just, like, running up and down, cleaning them off, cleaning the udder, right? Then they hook them up to a machine, and then do they do something after they pull the machine off? You spray them again?
You spray them again with some, like, lotion and iodine.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's fascinating, right? But then, you know, it all gets pumped into huge cylinders, and then, do you treat it at all, or do you put it right into...
We cool it.
Okay.
And we filter it once, just to any kind of large contaminants. Okay. Then we sell raw milk.
Okay.
To Dairy Gold. 6 truckloads a day.
Right. Yeah, there's always a semi-truck sitting outside getting full, right?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's huge. It's a huge operation.
Yeah.
So, have you ever got overwhelmed by it, or?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Every other day.
Really?
Well, I mean, it's stressful, you know, 24/7, 365. Like,
yeah.
Most people don't eat, like, even people who work in Walmart retail, they're like, oh, yeah, no, I get you. No, not like you don't. Like hospitals, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, but flat out, if you have a blizzard, if you have any world event, COVID, everything that went on, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You got to keep going. There is nothing that can shut you down. And that's very rare that people in most industry understand that concept.
Yeah. What happened with COVID? Did you guys skip a beat, or?
No.
No, you just kept going, right?
I mean, our markets were crazy. There was a time there, probably not for super, but I was kind of prepping for shoot, I'll take raw milk and sell it. I don't care what the laws are. Like we all probably went through that. Like, what's this going to turn into? Yeah. I was like, shit, I don't care. I'll take a tank load of milk to Seattle, Spokane, and turn on a siren and be like, bring your gallons out. I'll fill you up. Give me $2.
Yeah.
So, but no, we didn't skip a beat.
That's good. What's funny is we didn't either in construction, because most of our contracts are federal, right? Because they're schools and they're rec centers and stuff. And so like within a week of COVID, the lockdown happening, we had like letters from every contractor we dealt with, just like, hey, here's your exemption. You can travel, you can come to us, all this kind of junk.
Yeah.
And it was always like
your federal exemption.
Yeah. I was always rolling my eyes, right? Because it was just like such a farce.
Oh man. They would, I have a funny story with that. My brother, my oldest brother, he works on the fruit side, so he does everything apples and cherries, and he packs apples and cherries. And like me, he has lots of employees and lots of people doing that close. And what department of it? I think it was like OSHA, or the health, might have been the health department, came in and wanted to see everything he was doing for COVID. Like, okay, where's your temperature gauge? Where's, where he wants to audit your mask and all this stuff that you're making these people do. They don't want to do it. And you kind of like, okay, who's winning here, guys? I mean, but anyway, it was fine. It was all good. We had to do what we had to do. But this guy came in, high and mighty. My brother's like, hey, have you taken your temperature today? Just kind of like turned it back on him. Like, hey, I need to see your temperature. I don't know if you're sick. Like, what's going on? Like, and the guy just instantly was like, man, good for you, and walked out. It's like, brilliant. There you go. Yeah, it's the one smart thing my brother's ever done.
I love it. So when you guys, so one of the things that you're trying to set up, or you have set up, is royal family farming, right? Because you're really trying to get everybody in the valley to kind of, is it a co-op together or brand together?
All my family.
Yeah.
So just I've kind of explained like this family farm, and I'm kind of branched off on the cattle operation. But yeah, I'd like to get my uncles and cousins, and we're kind of coming together to get more regenerative, more closed loop, more sustainable together. And that's the genesis of royal family farming.
Gotcha. And let's jump into that, because that's a major, the regenerative part is a major, I look at it as a benefit for you, but the world is stupid, is what it really boils down to. And they think the cows are killing the atmosphere and all this craziness. Explain what regenerative farming is.
So regenerative farming is a series of practices that you're going to implement to try to just be more sustainable. And when I say sustainable, like there's obviously an environmental sustainability, and that's a huge part of it. But a lot of, and that's a huge part of our focus. But a lot of what that means too is you're sustainable. Look at COVID. You're local. You have all the pieces you need on your own farm to make it all work. So there's just a series of practices you're going to implement in order to be more localized. And with that, you're trying to take advantage of carbon. Carbon is what everyone's, that's the concern right now, is global warming and the carbon in the atmosphere. And so you look at photosynthesis 101, and you dive into the fact that there is excess carbon in the air, and the fact that there is a shortage of carbon in our soil. Carbon in soil grows crops. Carbon in soil is the lifeblood of our soil. You want carbon. You got to have it in order for life to continue. I often say cash is to an economy kind of that lifeblood that kind of flows to the economy and kind of keeps it rolling. That's what carbon is to living things. So you got to have it in the soil that can grow on. Regenerative practices are going to allow or facilitate a greater inverse of carbon from the air to the soil. So that's what we're trying to do. And there's a series of different practices, but one of the pieces that we are really diving into at a large scale, right? Like we're talking the real deal, which there's nothing wrong with it. We learned so much from the little 200 acre farm with the red barn, and they move the chickens around. All that stuff is incredible. Like that's kind of where we're learning how to do this stuff, but we're doing it at a huge scale, where we're still feeding the world for competitive prices, right? We don't take our food to a farmer's market and expect 2 or 3x for somebody who's willing to do that. We're going to continue to sell at Costco and Walmart, and try to feed the world all the world at a reasonable price and still apply these regenerative practices.
Yeah.
So, cattle are a huge part of that. Cattle are a huge part of a sustainable system. What cattle do, and you're going to have to cut me off at some point because this is when I'll go all day. But you think of cattle, and God created cattle with ruminants. They have 4 stomachs. So they take the crops that grow that we cannot digest. Grass being the forefront, right? We cannot digest grass. 2/3 of the landmass on the planet grows grass voluntarily. So cattle were created to eat that grass and to turn it into something we can eat. In fact, we need to eat more of protein, meat, and they do that ridiculously efficiently. And then beyond that, cattle are going to eat a lot of the crops. When we're talking commercial ag, like alfalfa, corn, these crops are the crops that treat our soils the best. So my dad's a potato farmer, grew up on a potato farm. A lot of people don't realize when you're planting a potato on 100 acres on a field, you harvest that potato, you realistically should wait 5 or 6 years to plant a potato there again. In the meantime, most of what you're going to grow is cow-consumed crops. You're going to put your grasses. You're going to introduce these diverse set of crops in order to treat that soil right and to diversify it and to keep it active, keep that carbon active. So that's where cattle come in. They build value for those interim years before you can put your cash crop back in. And that's true for most human-consumed crops. So when a soil or a plant is prepping this fruit or vegetable for humans' consumption, that soil and that plant is going to have to work harder in order to get it prepped for our guts. When that's happening when a soil and crop or plant is growing something for a ruminant, for a cow, it doesn't have to work as hard. So thus your soil is getting, replenished, treated better, if you will, when you're growing those cow-consumed crops. And then the cows take it and they upcycle it into protein that we then can consume. And they give you the rest of what they don't turn into meat or milk, they're going to turn into manure. And that manure is the next generation of your plants.
Right.
So they're a beautiful recycler sitting in the middle of this ag system that are throwing back to your soil, a huge part of soil health. Cows, when you talk large-scale soil health, organic, natural soil health, not these synthetics mined fertilizers, which can tease it for a second, you get there, but large-scale soil health, you got to have ruminants. So
what's the best way to get that from them? Because you kind of have like this big, is it like sitting ponds?
Are you talking the worm farm?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah. We have the largest worm farm in the world.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like those big, it's kind of like a steps down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're referencing the worm farm.
Yeah.
So, the worm farm is a big part of our manure management. So when you talk about cattle ruining the planet, where people who are halfway educated are going to jump into their manure, because it's true. The biggest part of a cow's emissions, so everything these days has a footprint. I dive into our footprint huge. I can tell you all of our footprint across our farm, especially on our cattle, because everything else is not a footprint, it's a sequestration. So when you're growing crops, you're sucking carbon, you're sequestering, you're banking that carbon in the soil to then grow more plants. Animals, cattle, and really anything that produces has a emission to it. So I track all that a lot. And the majority of that footprint comes down to manure management. So when you talk liquid manure management, that's where the majority of that portion of your emissions comes from. When you think of a wet, shitty pile of manure, that's where your methane's kind of oozing out. So what we do is when we have any wet shit, we send it to the biggest worm farm in the world. We sprinkle it on top. It settles through these beds that are full of worms, wood chips, and rocks, just copying God's creation, really.
Yeah.
Dirty, really dirty, shitty water on top, settles through. After about 4 hours, you're going to collect that water off the bottom, So now you're left with tea water, clean water that we can put through our irrigation systems. And then all the nutrients that were in that water are now captured in that media, and those wood chips just acting as filters as it goes through. And the worms are going to digest those, turn it into worm poop, which is, you think of a cow, making protein. Worms, when they eat something, their digestive system turns it into soil. And so now you're left with worm poop, soil that you can harvest off the top and go spread it across your orchard or your fields. And
you spread that stuff like a fertilizer?
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Worm poop is probably, I don't know that there's a good argument to say it's not the best natural fertilizer there is.
Cool. Yeah, then you're not spraying everything with chemicals, right?
Yeah, I mean, anytime, I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but the first thing I think of when you say that is you're probably, I don't want to be like a scientist because I'm not a scientist, but I think there's a really strong argument that if you want it to be in a really clean, you don't want to get sick, okay? You're better off going to a really kind of dirty farm with lots of diversity around, lots of bacteria around, good and bad, so that as soon as a bad bacteria lands, it's consumed by the good bacteria. You're better off in a setting like that if you're really concerned about getting sick than you are in a sterile hospital. Because as soon as you get in a sterile hospital, if there's some sort of bad bacteria or any different microbial that's negative, that's going to negatively affect you, it's going to thrive because it's the only one there until you happen to spray it down with alcohol again. But on the contrary, if you're in your grandpa's old shitty barn, there is so much bacteria, positive and negative. As soon as the negative microbial hits the ground, it's going to be consumed by the positive. So that's what you're trying to breed in regenerative ag and agriculture, is those positive bacteria are overcoming all the negative stuff and just creating this healthy ecosystem, which is going to then reduce your needs for, pesticides and herbicides and even synthetic fertilizers to then do the work that needs to be done in order to grow food.
Now, should every farm set that up, or is it expensive? Or both?
That's what Royal Family Farming is trying to do, is do this at a large scale to then duplicate across the board.
Okay.
So it is expensive. Any change, any adjustments is going to take money. It's going to take time. It's going to take error, trial. So yes, all that applies.
Did you build the system?
The worm farm?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I built it. I don't have the patent. There's a patent that BioFiltro owns that I have to pay them for in order to treat dirty water with worms. So They have a patent that essentially applies to that. So we built it, but it's their patent.
Gotcha. Because it's, does it end up being a cost savings for you because you don't have to buy all the other herbicides and pesticides and stuff like that, or is it still a cost?
No, it's still a cost, but that's the idea, especially with the world where it's at. COVID kind of launched us into a whole volatile world where now fertilizers are twice to 3 times as much as they were 3 years ago. And fertilizers are your biggest, when you're talking agriculture, that's your biggest cost of goods. That's your biggest expense. And so now our system that we're trying to, get better at probably is more competitive than it's ever been because the world's just automatically gone there. Most of our phosphorus is like if you think of macros for our diet, phosphorus is a macro for a plant diet. Mm-hmm. Most of that comes from Russia, which is obviously an issue right now.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why it's so expensive. Phosphorus is exorbitant. Can
you pull out enough from your regenerative part right now to feed all the entire farms? Or do you still have to supplement? So
there is a very important balance that has to be part of your conversation when you're talking about regenerative ag. Your balance to ruminants into acres is very important.
Yeah.
So the ruminant is going to almost always make, if you're balanced, it's going to make you enough phosphorus and potassium to continue your sustainable system on your farm. Potassium, phosphorus being 2 of the macro ingredients that plants need the most of to grow. We still, on our system, are short in nitrogen, which is another macro. It's like our protein to our diet. The nitrogen, and so they do, cows and worms now do give you a lot of nitrogen, but we're still short of nitrogen. So that's where like chickens come involved. Chickens, they shit a lot of nitrogen.
Yeah.
And so that's where you can take that and then work it in. So that's an evolution. Next evolution of our regenerative system is to introduce chickens. But we got to do it at a large scale, right? It's never easy for us because it's not like we go buy 200 chickens and like, hey, we solved our problem. We got it. No, we're talking 20,000 chickens or significantly more. I don't even know to solve our problem. But
so that would be a big undertaking, right? Because then you got to obviously build a chicken coop for an insane amount of chickens, but then you got to like harvest them too, right? I mean, they have a lifespan.
Correct. Yeah. Don't ask, Rip. Don't talk to Rip about this. Whenever I bring up chickens, he's like, I can't herd chickens on a horse. Shut the hell up. I'm not doing chickens. So you can cut this part. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So that's good. The funny thing too is like, I mean, gosh. So what would the capital investment be to put chickens on there? Did you have an estimate?
Realistically, for me to do it, I would have to go to like a Wilcox Farms or one of these chicken farmers and have a relationship with them. And a lot of them, I think, would be, especially right now, there's a chicken shortage. There's a reason your eggs and your chicken is so expensive in the stores. It's because there's a bird flu going around that's just killing chickens left and right.
Oh, jeez.
I would, because everything's about processing. So I'm talking right now from a regenerative ag standpoint because I want my soil to be healthy and I want a sustainable system. But there's a very real economic standpoint of like, okay, I got to turn these into something valuable. And just a big old chicken walking around after I fed it for whatever, 4 or 5 months is not valuable unless you can process it and turn it into something that people will buy. So that's the part that I'd have to partner on if I wanted to be real about this.
Are they local?
Yeah, there's some local. There's some of those around our area. I got some contacts that we're talking and stuff. So as far as an initial investment, I mean, we're talking millions.
Yeah.
But I don't know I haven't kind of dialed it in that much.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, you think about 20,000 chickens, man. That seems overwhelming.
Yeah, and that's a low number. I mean,
you got to keep those away from
20,000 chickens is probably doesn't even touch the tip of the iceberg.
You do like 100,000.
Probably. I mean, I'm running numbers in my head. I got about 50,000 head of cattle.
Yeah.
In order to have a balanced system with our family farms.
Yeah.
And that's so. I don't know if I have 50,000 head of cattle, both beef and dairy. I'd say at least 10 chickens to 1 cow in order to supply our nitrogen. So I don't know. I'm just doing the math as I sit here.
It's a ton.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So tell me the difference between a beef cattle and a dairy cattle.
Yeah. So I see. I mean, like breed wise, I guess a dairy cow is going to make milk. A beef cow is going to be better at making beef. Mm-hmm. So if you look at these breeds, the dairy cows are going to be skinnier. They're going to be really fertile. They might be larger, but when you see a dairy cow, you're going to see some bone, and they're going to be professional making milk. Yeah. So Holstein, Jersey, by far the two most popular dairy breeds out there. Holstein make a lot of milk. They're one of the biggest breeds. Jersey, a little smaller breed. They make creamier milk. And then on the other side, you got beef cattle. And that's your Angus, your Simmental, there's lots of different breeds. And those are your big old cows. They're going to grow fast. They're going to get fat and large, and they're going to walk around. Like when you see with any eyes of understanding in cattle, and you see a beef animal and dairy cow, they're two entirely different, like, body compositions.
Yeah.
So.
And like you'd never milk a beef cow, right?
No. I mean, you could. I mean, whatever. But no, you can't afford to milk a beef cow because you're putting in the same time, probably the same food for 30% less or 70% less milk.
Right.
And on the other side, beef's the same way.
And beef just grazes, right? Those cows.
No, not. I mean, all my beef will graze for a time, but vast majority of your beef is is much more than just grazing its whole life. They're going to be in a feedlot eating like a pretty complex diet. Complex is the wrong word, but they're going to have a lot of grass, but it's going to be fed through them with a TMR, total mixed ration of some corn and a balanced diet.
Oh, that's right, because you have a huge mixing area, I guess you'd call it, right?
Kitchen.
You call that a kitchen?
I call it the kitchen.
Yeah, why not? Okay, explain what the kitchen is. Paint the picture, because people are not going to understand what you're saying when you say kitchen.
So we'll start with like 2 70,000 pound capacity KitchenAid blenders.
Yeah.
And then you got a pantry full of we got 30 different ingredients sitting in piles. And then one loader, massive loader that holds, 6 yards, and every bucket scoop is going to pick up these ingredients and dump them into these KitchenAid blenders and these blenders are going to homogenize it, mix it up, and turn it into a mixed ration that's then going to have a balanced diet that a cow can take a bite of, and you can predict how much protein, how much fiber, how much fat. So all day, every day, we're making different rations, different diets for each group of our animals. So I work with 2 different nutritionists who are going to help me formulate the right diet for this group of animals and this group of animals. And you have tons of different groups of animals, and this nutritionist is going to help you formulate. And so that when you dump it, they consume what they need to consume to sustain essentially their genetics, because these animals are all professional athletes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you mix them with like a big front end Caterpillar loader, right?
Yeah. So big loaders with a 6-yard bucket, picks up a scoop, puts it in, and then the iPad in that loader is going to automatically say, okay, now go to the next ingredient and do 6,000 pounds of that. So he's going to pick up 6,000 pounds of this, dump it in the blender, and then the scale is going to hit, okay, now go to the next ingredient. So he's going to put, on average, 11 different ingredients for each diet.
Oh, wow. And is that a one-man job?
So it just depends. Our biggest kitchen is a 3-man job. You have one guy in the loader. You have one guy who's bringing a truck around to then take that diet and take it to your animals wherever they're at. Yeah. So he's just going to be doing a loop all day, every day, taking them. Some of them go to the even when they're on pasture, we're going to give them some supplemental food.
Oh, really? Okay.
And then a third guy who's just cutting twine for the bales and making sure his piles are set up right.
Yeah, and you've got, so how many acres does a kitchen sit on?
Oh, it's probably only 3 or 4 acres.
Right. Yeah, but I know people who live here,
oh, yeah,
like a half-acre lot.
Half-acre lot, yeah.
Oh, they just, I could see people thinking like, oh, they're just kind of like, grabbing a 5-gallon bucket, like mixing these things up, right? And I'm like, dude, guys, this is like, yeah, it's on 3 acres.
Yeah, when I say KitchenAid blenders, I mean, again, these are holding 70,000 pounds of food at one whack.
Yeah. Like, how tall are they?
20 feet.
20 feet tall, yeah. Yeah, they're wild. I can't picture what the blender looked like. I just remember seeing all the different piles of ingredients, and the guy was just, scooping one, rolling over, scooping one, because we were driving kind of by it.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't know why that was so fascinating to me, but it was one of the more fascinating things I saw.
Yeah.
I guess just because you have maybe it's because of the cartoons we watch as kids. Like you just have this idea of a dairy farm where they're just kind of like, the dairy farmer walks over with some, 5-gallon bucket of seed, kind of like puts it in a trough and they just come over and eat. And you're just like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, that'd be cool if you had like 20 cows, right?
Yeah.
If you got, 50,000.
Yeah. If you want to keep paying, whatever, even when it's expensive at $4 a gallon for your milk, that's not the image you have.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's wild, man. So one cool thing too that I know that you showed me when we were out there is, especially with the regenerative stuff, like you have everything on an iPad. Like there's a lot of technology actually behind what you guys do all day.
Yeah, tons.
Don't you have a tag on each cow? And so like if you're in certain restaurants in Seattle, you can actually QR code that thing and see where it came from, right?
Yeah. Yep. So each animal, from the moment they're born, from the moment we pulled that calf, probably within 30 minutes of that time, we were going to put an electronic ear chip in its ear, in her ear or his ear. And that ear chip from the beginning is going to have like 6 generations of sire and dam, mother and father. And it's going to have all their data, how effective her mama was at milk and breeding and everything else, their data. All their data is data on all the different offspring that their sire has. So that's from day one. All that information is uploaded with that animal when she's, an hour old. And then you're going to be collecting all of her data. So where she's at, everything she eats, if she's ever sick, what she's sick with, everything. And so we track all that. And on beef animals, we do the same thing. We're tracking it through. So our beef animals are going to be Angus hybrids. So their mama is going to come from the dairy, but their daddy is going to be the number one Angus bull in the world. Yeah. And we'll breed those two together. And so the beef animals, you're going to be tracking that. And then when they're done, we're going to convert that to a program called Farm Tracer. And it's going to create a QR code with all of that data on it. And so there's some menus in Seattle that you can scan, and it'll pull up the meat you're eating. It'll pull up the food that it took to create that animal, that meat. It'll give you where it was at, what it was grown, where it was grown, time on pasture, and then it'll actually give you its carbon footprint. So how much emissions it took, that animal emitted in its lifetime. And then it'll also consider how much food it ate from our farm, so the grasses and the corn, and how much carbon was sequestered when you're growing those crops. So at the end of the day, what's the true footprint of that animal? And so all that will be on that QR code.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Tons of data, all data driven, everything we do.
So with all that, what do you guys use for servers and all that kind of stuff? Is it all in the cloud?
We just put in a server actually just a couple weeks ago. I don't know. Server.
So it's in-house then, right? So you don't use like Amazon or...
No,
Microsoft,
we kind of used to, you had like a drive that we use like with Microsoft and stuff, but we just kind of brought that all in-house. And then, the Bova Sync system has a server. We're just bringing that all in-house now.
Yeah. Wow. What technology are you looking at implementing into the farm currently, or do you think you have it all?
Oh, no. So that's cool. Like we like that technology, and it's awesome, and it's way more advanced than most. Like there's nobody else that has that much information when you eat your steak to skin. I mean, so we're advanced, but next level would be pedometers on each cow. So you're actually counting how many steps they take. And so one of the main reasons you do that is because you can determine kind of before they're sick, if they're starting to feel sick, if they just start taking less steps than they normally do.
Oh, interesting.
And on the flip side, which we already track their heats through our system, but you can more effectively track their heats when an animal's in heat, when they're cycling, because they're going to take more steps than they normally do. So pedometers would be another management tool that we could use on every single animal. In fact, Nelson, he has those on all of his cows. Other collars, when you talk about pasture, a lot of our beef animals are out on pasture, and we have to manage that. Like you talk a pasture, especially our way of doing it, you take a 150-acre circle that you were growing potatoes on last year, and it's going to be a pasture this year. So you got to set up a hot fence. So you got to make these fences. Anyway, a lot of management. So there's these new collars that are GPS. And so when the cow starts getting on the border of what you want your pasture to be, it'll just start buzzing them to go back. And if they continue, it'll shock them.
Oh, really?
So this is like your fence that the dog fence type of deal that we have these days. So putting that collar on each animal, so then your pasture management is way finer tuned and less hands-on.
Right.
So those would be the next two.
Yeah. Is that something you're going to do?
Yeah.
Or you just want to? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, both. I mean, I think so.
Because sometimes with technology, right, you get to the point where it's like, I could implement that, but then it's also, because one thing that's a pain in the ass is actually implementing things.
Oh, yeah. Especially with 50,000 head of cattle.
Yeah. And then you get 4 months in and something doesn't work right. You got to get the IT guy on the horn.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, I put a lot of money in this.
Yeah, I think the pedometers are something we'll do in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
We've got quotes on those and how that's going to look and how we're going to do that.
So do you want to grow the farm a lot bigger? What's your goals with that?
I think, again, if we're going to stay regenerative, we got to have that balance. So when you say grow, that's loaded, because you can't just add more cows, because that's easy for me to do, because you got to have the acres to support that.
Yeah.
And acres are investment, huge investment. You know, we all know that land's expensive.
Yeah. Especially
when Bill Gates is probably the person who's buying more land than anybody around me. So short answer is, yeah, we'll grow when it makes sense. The part that I'm growing right now and that I'm really excited about is just the vertical integration. So we didn't go out to it, but I just started a processing facility. So all of our meat is now processed. We process it ourselves. In a pretty large scale. We do about 40 a day that we're converting into.
How'd you set that up? Did you just raise some money and do it, or is it a co-op thing, or did you just do it yourself?
I just did this one on my own. Like I just, took a leap. You know, it's a lot. At the same time, we were talking about like investing in. I told you, I'll do your hedge fund thing and I'll do Bitcoin with you, whatever. You know, we were talking about those rigs. Yeah. Instead, I took all that money and made a kill plant.
Nice, nice. So, and then I was hitting you up because I invested in that one in like Pocatello.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just kind of went for it. Hired a couple of good people who knew what they were doing. And
are those profitable?
Yes.
Yeah, they're good, right?
Yeah, there's a couple different kind of business models with them. Like there's just custom, which is the one you were talking about, is you're just getting paid to do the work, kind of a throughput thing.
Yeah.
And then you got the conglomerates, Tyson Foods and stuff, that are making ridiculous money because everything that goes through there, they've bought in that the animal. They're going to convert it and they're going to keep all of the upside.
Yeah.
And that's why there's so much hustle and bustle right now about the big four. And anyway, probably not so much because nobody probably pays attention except me. But anyway, yeah.
Which is insane, right? I mean, people should know.
Yeah, I mean,
you eat this stuff all day. Everyone eats. I mean,
yeah.
Tyson owns a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
What are the big four?
Tyson, AgriBeef, JBS, and then there's another one that's I can't think of right now. But
yeah. So do they hire you? You have some of your cows are for them, right?
So we grow cattle for Tyson Foods.
Okay.
So we're growing cattle for them.
How does that arrangement look? Do
they buy cattle, they drop them off on our farm, and then we charge them for how much food we're feeding them.
Okay.
So we know how much food we're feeding them, we know how much that costs, and then we're going to add a little bit to that and charge them that.
Yeah. Is that a profitable business? Or necessary?
It can be. It's kind of the reason we're doing it is kind of a diversification for us. Like everything else, we're taking all the risk, we're growing the animals. So this is more of a cash flow game, like more consistent. And it can be profitable. It's just more locked in and just little margin just consistently. So if you do a good job, then that can just be one of those diversifications to your business that just allow you to be take a little risk off the table.
Yeah. And do you have competition inside the valley? Is there other dairy farms?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, competition in some ways. We're definitely competing to buy feed. But in other ways, we're all part of a co-op called Dairy Gold. Yeah. So almost all of us are selling to the same person. We all own Dairy Gold together. So competitors plus partners. It's kind of a complex relationship, but it works pretty good. Cool. We all get along. Like we all have meetings together and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. You're kind of on the same team, even though you don't make money off each other, right? Kind of.
Yeah. We are very much competing in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Do you think you'll end up buying those guys out? Or do they have family that wants to take it over?
Yeah, there's a lot of older farmers right now, so there's a lot of opportunities for guys like me, 32 years old, who have a vision for these things. But again, like regenerative is pretty local. Like I've got to be pretty wise about my expansion, or I'm jumping out of my regenerative system.
Are those guys, are they regenerative too? Any of those dairies?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Like we're trying to go next level. So everything we're doing is trying to go, like we're trying to break the glass ceiling of the next level of that. And I would say we're kind of on the forefront of that, especially when it comes to a large scale. Like we are really, really doing a lot there. But a lot of these guys are doing the sustainable systems that make a lot of sense that have a high correlation to what we're talking about as regenerative.
Yeah. Do they, when they go to sell, is it a long process when guys try and sell their dairy, or is it short, or do they? 'Cause normal business, right? You kind of grow these businesses and you kind of get them out there to the market, then the market comes and grabs them, nabs them, and merges them or acquires them or whatever, right? Like, it seems to me like a farm would take a little bit longer to make that happen.
So almost always a farm is just going to sell to their neighbor.
Yeah.
So when you market it, almost always your neighbor is going to be the one to gobble that up, especially when you're talking medium-sized farms.
Yeah.
When you talk large farms, you might be in a different world to try to market a little better. But yeah, I think it's pretty typical. Like, you're going to go out. Like right now, there's a dairy farm for sale about an hour and a half from me. It actually kind of went bankrupt. The bank took it over, and I think it's under contract and trying to close with a random family that owns the Love's gas stations.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen those? Yeah, they're out buying like 4 or 5 dairy farms right now, which is really random. But
interesting.
So
what does that farm cost?
So that farm is about 6,000 milking cows. Not a lot of land, which when you're talking dairy farming, you want a lot of land to grow your feed. So not a lot of land associated with it. Nice facilities, pretty new. I think it was built in 2008 or something. So got a lot of depreciation left. It's about $30 million for the cows and for the facilities and the, whatever it is, 350 acres or something that's associated with that footprint.
How much of that is land cost?
Like land and facilities and improvements, or just land?
Yeah, like the real estate.
Just the real estate without the improvements, it's probably 10% of that.
Okay. And with the improvements?
With the improvements, you probably get up to 50%, 60%.
Wow.
And the rest is going to be tied into your cattle and equipment that you're buying with it.
So a $30 million farm, how much capital would you need to run it? Operating capital?
Yeah, you probably need, to be really comfortable, you want like a $10 million line of credit with your bank.
Really?
Or if you have that, good for you.
And then what would the rate of return be?
I mean, when we're talking rate of return in agriculture, it's a hell of a lot lower than most businesses.
Yeah.
So if you have a 6,000 cow dairy farm, like this one we're talking about, you could hope to have maybe 25 million in revenue a year, and that's going to fluctuate, right? Because that's what agriculture is. At least when we're talking commercial ag, like as we know it, the market is what the market is. You're getting paid what you're getting paid, unless you're kind of going the route I'm trying to go and kind of build some brands and stuff and vertically integrate. You're just, here's the price. Thank you. Like you get paid after the fact. So anyway, that fluctuates and you really have no control. You have control of your expenses. That's about it. So if you make 25 million, you're going to be really stoked to have 3 million left over at the end of the year. And that's totally market based. I mean, obviously your expenses have a huge play, and that's what we do is we manage expenses. Yeah. But like this year, the milk price has been pretty high. So this is a pretty good year for milk. So in that, typical 6,000 cow farm, if you made 25 million, maybe you kept 5 this year and you're feeling really, really good.
Oh, cool.
But next year, you'll likely lose money. Probably out of every 5 years, you're going to lose money more than you'll make money.
Yeah, you'll have 1 year that kind of...
And then 1 year like this where you're kind of bankrolling.
So there's tax advantages, right?
Huge tax advantages.
Yeah. Because I'd imagine, I can't, with a business like that, if you have years where you're going to get thumped, you got to build your cash reserves, obviously, to get through those years. But you can't be doing that if they're taxing the death out of you like they tax the rest of us.
Yeah, for sure. Like, so say you make $5 million this year on a large dairy. If you go and pay whatever that would be, 2.5 or 2.4 of that in taxes, you're screwed. Because next year you're literally probably make negative 2.4. And so that is the difference. There's big tax advantages, especially, but just like anybody, if you went and bought a $30 million asset anywhere, you're going to have huge tax advantages for a few years because you're just depreciating all that.
Yeah.
So
is there special tax credits though for ag?
There's a few games that you can play. One is when you're talking ag, like the IRS sees it as a lifestyle. So it's not a 40-hour-a-week job. So when I go to the grocery store, I'm buying food for my farm, my family, and we're part of the farm. So yes, like all the equipment, all the cars I buy when I build a house, that's all part of the farm. So that's a big deal, right? Like your tax write-offs, as everyone says.
Yeah, they don't bust you on that. They just know it's part of.
It's all part of the farm. It's seen as that way.
Yeah.
Everything I do, even buy groceries, is to support my farm. So thus, the farm's paying for it. Yeah. The other piece that's really, really a good advantage is you think of cattle themselves. Like if anyone's familiar with depreciation on a piece of equipment, that can be attractive. Like if you go buy $1 million of equipment, that's going to help you for the next few years. Cattle are even better than that because, anyway, I don't know but when you talk about a cow, so for a dairy cow, for the first year of its life, she's just an expense. She's not giving you any milk. You're just growing her up to become a milk cow. And in that time, she's just that. She's just an expense for your books. So whatever you put into her, you get it directly right off on your bottom line. And then as soon as she becomes a dairy cow, so she has a baby, now she becomes a piece of equipment for 7 years. So that piece of equipment now has a 7-year depreciation, which when you're talking a lot of animals, every year you're kind of buying a whole bunch of equipment to be depreciated. See does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's some of the advantages, and there's some arbitrage there too.
How do you determine the value of a cow to depreciate against? Like is the value of 2,500? Is it 10,000? Is it 1,000?
The value of one cow is going to be, you're going to when she becomes a cow, it's probably around $1,200, $1,400. It changes every year, but $1,200 to $1,600 is what you, or maybe even it get up to 2,000. But you're going to depreciate against that. So if you have 20,000 of them,
yeah,
and you're converting 1,000 or 2,000 every year, that's a couple million at least.
And you don't ever buy cows, right? Because you just have enough births, or do you still buy?
Correct.
Some?
I haven't bought a cow in a long time.
Yeah.
Except from the 4-H.
Yeah. Good. So, say someone's 18 right now, listen to this, right? And they're like, and let's say they have a little bit of farm experience, right? They're not from Utah, they're from like Idaho, right?
Southern Utah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably true. No, there's definitely farmers here. You almost never meet them anymore, right? We think we're the tech, little brother to the world.
You've taken over. You've built houses on the farms.
But so say they want to get into farming. They're like, I would love to do a dairy. Like I want to do this. Like, what's the path to own a farm?
It kind of goes back. I don't know if we were on the mic or not talking about mentors.
Yeah.
But it definitely goes back to that. You gotta. And you don't have any family ties, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, no family ties.
Then, you got to find that mentor. You got to find that person. And there's actually a lot. Like I would say that's not an impossible feat. There's a lot of farmers, especially in today's world, that are of the baby boomer generation who don't have interested posterity.
Yeah.
So, find someone. Go work for them. And I think a lot of people, this isn't unique to farming, but anyway, find that guy. Find that girl and mentor them, work for them, learn all you can. And then there's going to be creative ways for them to involve you. That's probably pretty typical of most businesses, right?
That's the best way to do it, yeah.
That's by far for farming, even more so, because otherwise, unless you have a trust fund of a few $1 million, you can go get started on a piece of land and go that route.
Are banks favorable towards farming?
I think some banks avoid it.
Okay.
I would think. And then other banks are kind of geared up for it.
It's a pretty solid investment, right?
Land is a very solid investment. And a lot of farming is going to kind of boil back to land.
Yeah.
So in that regard, it should be a pretty solid investment. But if you don't have any land and you're farming, then you're pretty high risk, pretty high debt.
Yeah. Well, farmers do like seller financing?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's how I've bought most of my farms.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Seems like that's almost how you have to do it, right?
Correct. 100%.
Yeah, because they're still kind of tied in. There's a long trade-off.
Yep.
You know, I'm sure you could just take a farm on now, but you know, at the start, it's like.
Yep, for sure. That's what I mean. That mentor and the creative way of kind of getting you involved would be seller financing or get you a little piece, and there's a lot of things.
Yeah, keep earning your way into it.
Yeah.
So when you go to sell, you're actually not hoping to sell, right? You're hoping the kids will take it over.
Yeah, maybe some of these offshoots that I'm doing. Like I got a skincare line nursed, you know, that we're starting with our colostrum. So, you know, I'm not saying I'm looking to sell any of those, but I got a lot of different offshoots that might have a strategy, kind of more of a typical strategy that people you're talking to. Yeah. But the core farming system is probably not the strategy I'm attacking. Doesn't mean it might not come up, but I'm working towards generational stuff.
So take someone like me, right? Say I had enough money to go buy a farm, or at least get the financing for a farm, right? I want to jump into it. Would you recommend it as an investment?
Like a passive investment, or someone like you who's, I mean, you're not going to move out there and, you know, give up everything else. Like, it's tough. I mean, I don't know. I would recommend land, but if you wanted to be like manage an operation that's farming and,
well, for example, take you.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe we'll throw this dill on the table and massage it. If one of your neighbors wanted to sell the farm, right? And you came to me and said, "Hey, you should buy this farm. I'll manage it." Like, is that an arrangement that's attractive on both sides, or do you need to, like, if you're a farmer, need to be there?
No. Well, so 2 parts. One, that would be a very attractive. I would think if you trusted me to make money on this farm, that'd be very attractive for your tax scenario. Yeah. If you have, you know, I actually do this with a brother-in-law who's an attorney, so he has tax problems. Yeah. So yeah, he's a partner in mine in some of my ventures because for him, it's a massive tax advantage, and for me, it's an opportunity to grow and develop and expand, and be more efficient. So yes, in that way, if you trusted the person you're going in with, because if there's not trust there, it's really complex. Yeah. Just like anything, but contracts aren't going to, you know, make that okay for us.
Right. Yeah. Because the bottom line is, I'm assuming the risk is, if things get tight, you're obviously going to take care of your farm first, and you have the secondary farm, and then you could probably kill a farm off pretty quick. Yeah. I'm assuming, right? At least bankrupt it.
And you can, you know, milk a farm. Like I can milk this farm to support this farm. Pretty soon this farm's bankrupt and this farm's thriving, and the partnership we have sucks, but I'm still thriving on the other side. Yeah, there's a lot of, it's pretty complex in that regard if you don't have a high level of trust. That's why a lot of people don't do it. Yeah. You know.
All right. So little offshoot question here. Yeah. Wagyu beef. What's your opinion?
Wagyu beef.
Best in the world?
Oh man, Japanese Wagyu, like the stuff from Japan, you know, Kobe beef from those regions. Good beef. I grow some Wagyu, and a lot of that's from my own freezer. Yeah. Just because I don't do it commercially. I think what you're going to see in Wagyu beef, just like you see in a lot of things, is it's going to get diluted out. So this American Wagyu, all that means is it's got some Wagyu lines back in the day, but most of the time because here's the issue with Wagyu. It takes a long time to grow. And so you have to get a lot more money for it. And that's not an issue because it's just awesome in a lot of instances. But what's happening, you're already seeing it. You're going to get these Wagyu burgers. Those are American Wagyu. So you're getting the biggest, fastest growing Angus whatever it's, bull or cow. And you're getting some Wagyu, you know, genetics into that animal. And now you got an American Wagyu, which is going to be mostly an Angus or mostly an American breed. Yeah. And so it's gonna get diluted out. So you're gonna have to be, just like anything, more specific on what you're eating, and your Wagyu kind of term is gonna get diluted out. Yeah. How
many Wagyu cows do you have?
A couple hundred.
Oh, really? You got that many, huh?
Yeah. You want one?
Yes.
Come on over. I just actually the Seahawks. I just killed 8 of them for the Seahawks last month.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Well, now you got your own meat packing too.
Yeah, and all the Seahawks eat all our meat. The Seattle Kraken eat our meat. Like, we've got some pretty big.
What's the Kraken?
It's a hockey team, professional hockey team.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah, so the Seahawks chef came over and we were talking. He's like, hey, I want to do something special for the Seahawks for Christmas. What can I do? Well, I got some of these Wagyu. They're kind of, just sitting on the side of everything.
Yeah.
Oh, could I do that? Sure. You got to buy the whole thing. Like, you can't just take the ribs and strip, just the tenders. It's like, all right. So we did. They bought 8 animals. We shipped them. We packaged them for them. And now I'm sure they've got a whole bunch of rounds and chucks sitting that they didn't exactly turn into steaks,
They're crazy. They should. So your meat packing plant, do you guys do ground?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you do everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, we don't make patties or some of that stuff, but we have partners. We make a ton of patties out of our beef that goes to a partner who's going to make patties and then, give the patties to our customers.
Yes. Yeah, every time I bought cows down here, I've got a couple of farmer friends that I buy them from. They just send the cow over and then I just get, like a ton of 1 pound ground beef, right? And then like all the cuts, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that's the best way to do it.
Similar thing, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do with like all the bones and everything?
So, I mean, there's a market for bones. I haven't tapped into it because it's usually by like truckload. And so as I expand, probably here this year, I will be selling a lot of bones, either dogs, you can package them up nicely and get them dogs, bone meal, further processing, which is a good fertilizer. For me, so I am kind of entertaining and working towards some of those things. But right now, most of my bones that aren't kind of getting R&D'd are going to compost.
Gotcha.
So I mix them with my manure. So every day, and it's going back to the soil, frankly, which is a huge part of what I do. No, just put them in a compost row.
Oh, just a whole bone?
They heat up. In a couple of months, they're compost.
Really?
Manure. Applied on the fields and grow next generation of crops.
Wild. That's
what we do with all our guts. You got all your guts and junk.
Stuff.
Stuff that smells good.
Yeah, I was going to say, but it smells amazing.
So every day we got a truckload coming back to, our beef processing is about 30 miles from the ranch. So you take the animals there every day and then you bring back kind of these bones and guts and hides. Hides we're getting some markets for, but back, you throw them in the manure, compost and turn them, heat them, compost and turn them.
Nice.
And then you apply them back in the soil. Nothing leaves. You got to keep it in the loop.
No, I like that, dude. It's like the circle of life, right?
It 100% is. That's honestly, what regenerative ag is.
Every time I think about it, I just hear that song, just freaking Elton John.
100%, yeah.
Which is amazing. I mean, it's the way it should be.
Really is.
Yeah.
It's an incredible system. Like when you start thinking about it, our ecological system is awesome.
Yeah. We
just got to kind of focus on it.
So are you going to ever put like a resort on there with like a creamery and a steakhouse?
So did we talk about like my big plan vision, like almost like a university campus type deal?
Yeah.
I'd love to kind of have agritourism system that you can come out, learn a ton and experience a ton. Cause I think that's what we're getting away from, right? Like you're a stud in every way. Like you have all the experiences you want to do, but yet you come out to my farm for a half hour and you have like experience you've never had.
Yeah.
And they're not that unique. Like we rode a horse and we pulled a calf. So I would love to kind of create a system that people could come, get out of the house and have a real true experience as they're learning about the farm and the circle of life.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a big project, but I would love to.
Oh, I tell you, man, I joke with my kids and I'm not joking. Like I want them to come do a summer up there.
Which would be awesome.
It would be way good because it's, I got a lot more labor when I was a child than my kids do. I tease them a little bit. They're a little pampered, not crazy pampered, but
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I think some farm life for you guys for, 3-4 months would be real good. We're going to figure out when.
I have these 125 employees and I say like on my own social media channels, I always just kind of end up backing my employees because these guys and girls are never depressed and they work hard. I mean, we're talking 5 a.m. is a normal start time. Most of the time, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
We work weekends, everything. And you know what? Their mental health is it's way better than, the other. And I think it's because they just work hard and they love it and they're happy. Anyway, so I think you're right. I think we need more of it. People underestimate what happens when you just go work hard for your mental health.
Oh yeah. Plus I think there's just, you need to have some of those experiences to appreciate where your food comes from.
Yeah.
I'm a big meat eater, but I don't know. I have a gratefulness about it. These cows live, they died, I'm eating them. It is a total circle of life thing.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know. You see on TikTok or something, right? Where you interview these people and they don't realize really where beef comes from or chickens come from or eggs come from.
Not at all.
Freaking cheese. And it's number one, YouTube that, right? And number two, it's how do you not know this? You think it just comes to the grocery store? The grocery store's got a magic microwave in the back that just pumps stuff out. It's just bananas, right?
It is bananas. And not is it just bananas, but people are so ignorant that they almost, the consumer is almost feeling that's a better route. This, right. this lab meat that you make out of a microwave in the lab. People are serious about that because they're so ignorant to that circle of life that you're talking about. And we on the farming side, that's what I'm trying, need to educate better so that people aren't so naive to think that period, cows are ruining the planet.
Right.
It's not the cow, it's the how. It's not just an assumption you can make.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's an emission. But frick, these things are producing, man. They're going to have an emission. Give them some credit. Give them a little bit of mercy. My high cows, they're going to eat 120 pounds of food a day. They're going to give you 100 pounds of milk.
Yeah.
Yes. They're going to burp. Cows don't fart. That's my tagline.
Yeah.
Cows don't fart. They don't. People don't know that. 4 stomachs. It doesn't get to the anus. They're going to burp. But give them a little bit of, street cred.
Yeah.
Yeah. They can belch a little bit. Then we get our systems figured out, and you're going to suck that out of the air when you're growing that corn for tomorrow's meal. So
exactly. No, that's the thing. You go to a dairy farm, right? Let's just say the valley. It is some of the cleanest air you're ever going to be around, right? If you're right next to the cows, it smells like a dairy, right? But it's just amazing. We went through the orchards and we picked apples and stuff, and it's just you're insane to think that just methane is just oozing out of the valley all over the place.
Yeah, it's not even. We plant 100,000 trees a year in our orchards, and those are sucking up all that methane.
Yeah.
And utilizing it. That's why that balance is so important. But that's.
Yeah, man, you got to get that thing up, dude. Get that resort rolling. A couple pretty girls walking everyone around, right?
Hey, there you go.
In overalls and a cowboy hat, right? Or whatever.
I did, I don't know if I told you, but we have a 50 million gallon shitwater lagoon.
No.
And so we put in the worm farm.
Yeah.
And that cleans that lagoon. So now we have a 50 million gallon irrigation pond, right? Yeah. And it's still tea water. It's not potable by any means. But to kind of prove that, I went wakeboarding on that lagoon.
Oh,
so
did you?
Part of the attraction to this agritourism university might be you can come wakeboard on the lagoon.
Little wakeboarding.
Little nice. Wakeboarding resort.
So real quick before we finish up, so you talked about Nursed, right? Nursed is an ancillary business. Basically, you're taking waste and turning it into a product, right?
Yeah. Most of what we do everywhere,
Yeah, so Nursed is actually how we met, funny enough.
Yeah.
And Nursed is colostrum lotion.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. There's some other products coming out, but it's colostrum-based skincare.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Yeah, colostrum, people who don't know about colostrum, man, which I was, again, I grew up on potato farm, so I got into this colostrum thing, and I kind of knew what it was, just like most people. I could tell you that's the first milk out of a mama when she has a baby. We don't appreciate it. In the first world, we don't appreciate it because we have hospitals. It's sterile. But in third world countries, in the animal kingdom, the next generation ceases to exist without colostrum. Right. It is that powerful. And we track everything, right? Those ear tags, we go back to the ear tags. We're tracking everything, every sick event, any health event that our animals have, we're tracking. When they get their colostrum, we track it. We know how much they got. We know what the quality is. We take a Briggs test of everything. So anyway, long story short, I realized real quick the power of this colostrum. You give a calf mother's colostrum in the first hour of life, and she will have mother's immune system for 2 to 3 weeks. And if you do that effectively in the first hour of life, and then we do a follow-up treatment of colostrum, she will not get sick for the first 2 weeks of life because her mother's immune system will keep her. And then they'll almost always get sick, almost get a snuffy nose after that, and but their most vulnerable time, because there is no magic to any of us when we're born. Our immune system starts at 0.
Yeah.
Colostrum is what gives us our immune system for the most vulnerable time of our life to get to the next chapter. And 2 weeks in, we got our feet underneath us a little bit. Then we can handle, licking our own shit. Yeah. But you can't handle that without colostrum. You will die if every baby would. Yeah. So we see that, and it's such an incredible substance. And so we had this excess colostrum. We're like, I got to do something with this. So that's the genesis of Nursed.
And you take it and powder it down, right?
Yeah.
And then enter it and then introduce it to the creams.
Yeah, we got to stabilize it. Obviously, we don't want our creams to smell too much like a dairy farm, but right. So we stabilize it. We pull all the water out, which is it's not a huge problem. You're just pulling the water out.
Yeah.
You got a powder. It's colostrum.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what we feed our calves too. Just
right.
So.
And it's amazing what it does for your skin, right?
It is. Like, just our skin, the biggest organ on our body, it's just food for the skin. And so, I hate like the snake oil, dairy farms are famous for, hey, feed your cow this. And so, I like to be more specific on what it does, but in the end of the day, it just creates healthy bodies, healthy skin. Yeah. Because your skin is absorbing all of those nutrients that really you can't find in a lot of things. Hence, colostrum, that's why it's so special for the brand new baby.
Yeah. So what other businesses have you spun off?
So, recently the beef business has been a big part of what I've been trying to do. So we're processing our own beef. That's its own business. And then we're selling that beef to a lot of customers in Seattle. The Climate Pledge Arena, anyway, they weren't going to sell beef because of this narrative. And then they kind of got connected with us. Okay, we can put beef. Climate Pledge Arena is it's like a Seahawks Stadium, right? It's where it should be called Amazon Arena. It should be called what these arenas are called. But it's called Climate Pledge Arena because they're trying to build a recognition for, the change that they need to make. And again, they have all these rules for their vendors, and beef wasn't going to fit their category. So we did. But anyway, yeah, so the beef world, the beef market, the beef brand, Nursed, this technology that we're doing with Farm Tracer, being able to scan your barcode, all that's kind of part of our system. So
And Farm Tracer is your company, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but that's mainly when I think of development, R&D that I'm doing, it's kind of on that regenerative ag, and then trying to effectively not just tell that story, but duplicate that.
Yeah. So with your cherries and stuff, would it ever be advantageous for you to turn them into chocolates and sell them as chocolates, like a business that's that far removed? Or is it good just to pluck the cherries and get them over to a confectionist?
No, if we develop this brand, this regenerative ag brand, and in fact, we're doing a lot with the apples and cherries in that world. I was at Costco headquarters. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, I guess, but who cares? I was at Costco headquarters a few weeks ago and giving a presentation in regenerative ag, and then trying to build this, brand of our fruit and our beef. Yeah. So, yeah, there would be all those avenues. Once we kind of build that brand and build that system for our farm, and then crack the marketing code with Nursed and with this beef brand, then the scalability is pretty huge, because you just kind of take the next product, put that brand on it, and you have options to, make it great.
Well, and now that you have customers. Now that you have the kill house, can you sell directly to the general public?
I could.
Is that advantageous to do that?
Yeah, if I lived in a bigger city, right now I could sell to all my community and all the surrounding communities,
Well,
10
say there
times
was
a day.
someone in, you know, I don't know, San Diego that wanted a quarter of a Wagyu beef, right? I mean, I'm sure you can just push the price up to make it worth it, right? But to like pack it and ship it to them, I mean, is it a business worth doing, or?
Eventually, maybe like I'll dive into that, but that's just a lot of management.
Yeah.
We're kind of doing that just kind of in the commercial route of putting it in a full truckload, getting it there versus like packaging it individually and sending it off, which is going to have a lot more expense to it, a lot more management.
I could see the world looking at, especially your dairy, and saying, well, I want beef from there. Because you can't go to like Costco or Walmart and know where the beef's coming from, you know? Or can you? Can you actually look in the package?
That's what we're hoping to do. No, you can't typically,
Yeah.
but that's the model we're trying to build. Like, yes, you can. You can go to Costco, and that's what we're trying to sell Costco and Walmart, because Walmart has been to our farm probably 7 times.
Yeah.
Hey, we can do this at a large scale. In fact, we should. That's how you really move the needle.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can become the first like beef brand that people like trust, essentially.
From your typical grocery store.
Yeah. Yeah.
What you're used to buying at the price you're used to buying it. Because as you probably know, like, yeah, you're trying to bring it, shipping it in. That's going to be really, really expensive. And
can you sell on Amazon? Could you sell beef on Amazon? Is that a thing?
I don't know. I haven't checked.
Never thought about it until just now.
Maybe I should check.
Just because, and the reason why I say that is because their logistics are, you know, second to none. I mean, it's crazy what they can do with logistics.
Yeah, about like 8 years ago, we did some experiments with Amazon Fresh on our fruit.
Okay.
But logistically, it became a nightmare. Like, it's a perishable item.
Because you're just too far away from the general consumers. 'Cause you're about what, 2.5 hours from Seattle?
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, about that. Well, I think if your customer was only in Seattle and you could only say our customers can only be in Seattle, you could probably make something work.
Yeah.
But Amazon Fresh wasn't trying to, limit themselves to only Seattle.
Oh,
so
right.
the models where they were trying to build out were much bigger than that. So as a result, it really didn't work at the time. It probably has a little more legs now. But way back before Amazon Fresh was anything, that was something we were working with them on.
Yeah. Huh, cool.
Didn't really work out.
So what's next for your farm? Any plans on the quick horizon?
Oh, the quick horizon. My New Year's resolutions are very much centered around, like, sounds probably what you're mastered at. And you've been a mentor for me. Like, we've talked a lot about hiring this controller and trying to get my organizational structure established. So I really want to get things organized so that I can find that balance in my business of time and money and accountability, yet not being in the middle of absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So that's, to answer the question very directly, that's what I'm doing.
Gotcha.
Is trying to organize. I've kind of gotten pretty big, fairly successful, and it's time for me to like sit down and like organize it so that I can, scale and be successful and efficient moving forward without just totally blowing myself and everything up.
Right. That's the temptation, right? It's hard to relinquish some control.
Yeah.
But you have to, or you don't have a life.
Yeah.
And so, I was literally just talking to I don't know if you want to call him a client / friend yesterday that wants me to come and reorganize their entire business. And so.
Do you do a lot of that?
A lot's broad, right? I've done it enough times that I'm trustworthy to do it.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah.
It's like, so everyone has their skill sets, right? And one of my skill sets is organizational behavior. And so it matches my mind to help people organize the way that it needs to be organized. And I've done trial and error in my own businesses, and then I've seen businesses that I've invested in, and we've changed them somewhat, and then sometimes we don't. Sometimes they're fine. It's not like every single thing needs something fixed. But yeah, I guess my skill sets are basically likability and organization. And that's really where I really shine. Like, if you were to hire me in your corporation, like, that's the two things you'd have me do. So generally when I'm around people, they end up enjoying the interaction, right? That's what I mean by likability, which comes with having some competency and honesty and trust and, and the ability to get stuff done. And so But then you put that into the organization side, and it's like, yeah, it's really easy to kind of put things exactly where they need to go, especially when people aren't used to having like a controller, right? A controller is one of the first things I tell everyone to implement, right? Because the controller is a reporter back to you. You know, that person is to look at your money, give you an unbiased, unemotional, just based on the numbers opinion on where you sit.
Yeah.
You know, and if they can do that monthly, you're clicking pretty good. You know, you don't need to like have it every week or anything like that, you know. And then every month, you know, you're kind of taking a look at your organization and going, okay, you know, what's stressing me? Well, I feel like I got to look at every single purchase order, because if I don't, then someone's going to over order. And so then it's like, okay, so then I need to go find me a purchasing agent that's worth their salt, you know. And sometimes you got to do hybrid, right? Because it depends on your organization. Maybe that's not a full-time job. Yeah. You know, maybe that's maybe for you guys, I don't really know, but well, I assume it's not, but maybe it is. Like once a month, they have like 1 week out of the month, it's like hardcore purchasing, right? There's a lot of businesses that are similar to that, or there's businesses like mine that just happens every single day. We just order every single day. It's almost in real time, and so because you know orders come in, they have to be ordered, and you just have to kind of keep on going back and forth. And so, but yeah, the long way to answer your question. Yeah, I also kind of like doing it. It's like how I nerd out. So.
Yeah, we should talk. That's been the last month. I've just been trying to develop like the flow of everything that goes through my business, the money flow. I got an awesome controller. I think he's the right personality, the right guy, the right fit. Good. So now I just kind of got to build the structure around it so that everything can go through that. Because right now, even though he's there, it's not necessarily established for everything to go through him. And so I need to kind of build around that. And
they normally, a good controller has the ability to actually make changes inside your business without asking you permission every single time. Yeah. You know, now there's controls, so there's not like, you know, you're not like, who the hell's building this building? No, you are. You know what I mean? But like, you know, they should be able to go inside your organization and go, hey, this department, you guys are losing money with this, and the reason why is because you're overspending on this, so fix it. Yeah. Right? And then they report back to you and say, this is what I said.
And that's what I got to do is like build departments even. Like that's where he's like, yeah, they're spending a lot of money, but what department is that coming out of, and how do I? Yeah, so there is, I do got to kind of, and that's what this month we actually I have a retreat for kind of my upper management on the 25th where we're going to dive into this and like establish departments. Like it's that silly. We're that kind of rudimentary because you know we've grown pretty fast, and you know, it's like a family farm to now it's kind of this much more than that, and a lot of different moving parts, and so.
Well, and I think like some people might hear that and go, that's crazy. You guys do all this business, you don't have it organized. And it's like, no, it's organized. It's just not efficiently organized.
Yeah. It's organized, but it puts me in the middle and a couple of us in the middle who has to really stress their life out all the time in order to make sure it's not going off the tracks. Right. And that's the part I'm trying to organize is it can stay on the tracks and I can work 40 hours a week. Yeah. Which is a wonderful concept.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Take a vacation and not freak out, right?
Yeah, take a vacation and not like the week before and the 3 weeks after miserable because you left for a week. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff. There's so many people who are, this is not new.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just a decade ahead of it. You probably are very sympathetic to that because I'm sure you were that.
Absolutely.
And then you sorted it out and got there.
Yeah, just had to kind of figure it out. And that's why I'm good at it, probably, because the first time around I had to figure it out by myself, no real input. And because one thing that people should understand is the place you work, generally, unless you're like in a big corporate structure, right? But like, it's your personality. You know, you come to talk to my employees, like you will hear them say phrases that I've said to them 1,000 times because that's the way I establish the culture in there. And that's the way that I want things done. I want them done the way that I do things, right? And so,
what's something you say 1,000 times? Like, what's a couple?
Make the company the most amount of money by costing it the least amount of money. So dudes will come in and ask me like, "Hey man, look, this customer's upset or blah blah blah, and this thing's going off the rails, blah blah blah. What should I do?" Make the company the most amount of money by costing it the least amount of money. And I've expanded on that too, right? Because you have an upset customer, even if they're being unreasonable, right? You don't want to burn a bridge or ruin your reputation with them, especially in construction, right? Because in commercial construction, that customer might come along every 3 years. Yeah. So if you blow them out of the water now, even though they're wrong, right? Then in 2 years when the next bid comes out, they just toss your bid in the garbage. So then you start losing business big time, right? So
balance.
Yeah. So, but I mean, almost every problem can be solved with that phrase, right? So, not that I say it enough, it should be on my tombstone or anything. That would be a little sad. A little Scrooge and Bob Marley kind of going on, right? But yeah, I say that stuff all the time, you know. And then I'm trying to think of another phrase I'd say. I should get an employee in here and have him just rip them all out. I'd be like, oh, yeah. Because to me, it's just like my personality. So
what we're doing right now, my tagline for 2022 for the across the culture was siempre mejor, which in Spanish is always better. Yeah. I feel like, especially with my workforce, like it's always kind of offensive when you kind of try to change something. It's not offensive at all. Like, we're trying to be better. Yeah. And it's not that you suck. It's that we're open and we're all learning. So yeah, siempre mejor is our focus right now.
No, I mean, see, one thing I probably lack in, honestly, in my 2 construction companies is we should have more of a banner like that. You know, I mean, we have direction, there's leadership in there and stuff like that, but like, you know, I don't think everyone gets up in the morning. They're like, "We're going to be better today." Well, sometimes it's like, "Oh shit,
we're not there at all." Like, I mean, if you were to audit, like, let's go see how this is. You ask my guys, like, "What's this slogan?" I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah. you know something crazy I did? I had one employee. He's a really fun guy, but I walk out of my office and I kind of walk into everybody right when I come out, right? And I try and spend a lot of time talking to my employees and getting to know them and making sure everything's good. And he goes, "How much would you pay me to get a tattoo of the ADP Lemco logo?" I go, $1,000? And he's like, "I'll do that. I'll do it for $1,000." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Sounds good, bro." But I was like on my way out, right? And it's like a Thursday or a Friday. Thursdays are basically Fridays for us because they don't work on Friday. Yeah. We do 410s. And I think he calls me or texts me like on Saturday or Sunday or something, right? And he's just like, "Hey, if I do this, will you cover the cost of the tattoo as well?" And I was like, "How much is the cost of the tattoo?" He's like, "I don't know, $200-$300. And I was like, "Sure." So I don't really think that much about it, right? Because I'm like, it's a pretty big commitment to get a tat. Bro, I come in Monday morning, his entire calf is my logo.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, dang, you actually did it. Okay, cool. I'll go to the bank, you know? So like got some stuff done, ran to lunch, came back, you know, like it was like $300 a tip. So I gave him $1,300, dude, and people are like going crazy. And
that's awesome.
And I don't know, man, it's just such a funny thing, right? Because that whole interaction is like my personality, right? Like if I say I'm going to do something, there's a 99.999% chance I'm doing it, right? So if you say, yeah, for $1,000 you get a tat, I'm like, yeah, do it, man. Get a tat. I actually said to him, I go, if you get one in your face, I'll pay you $3,000 or your neck, as long as it's visible. And so, but then I walked out of the office, right, thinking not much of it, you know. Then it happens, and it's like, oh, geez, that's all awesome. Right, let's do it, man.
That's awesome.
Because I know one thing that, you know, because I have some really good employees there that, you know, and then, you know, employees get disgruntled every now and again or whatever, right? And I have one that I've heard him say a million times to people. It's like, you know, like you're in a small business. It's a small business world. There's perks and there's cons to be in that world. But I'll tell you one thing. He always does exactly what he says, you know, and that's like the reputation I love having, right? It's like, yeah, I pay you exactly what I say I'm going to pay you. The structures are exactly what I say. If I say I'm going to buy you a company truck, I buy you a company truck. You know what I mean? Like I just keep my word all the time. And so.
Yeah, that's obviously so important. And the part that I just look at me, I'm just kind of analyzing myself and how, because I obviously, I mean, but my word is very important to me. Yeah. But the part that you're probably better at than me is being direct. Like, that's what I need to be better at. Like, I need to be able to say no more effectively. Yeah. Like, somebody sits down with you and asks for something, and, you know, instead of kind of humming and hawing around it, like, of course, if I say, yeah, I'm going to do that, then I'll do it. Yeah. But, it, you know, most of the time I'll be like, you know, let me think about that. Let's consider that, you know, kind of those words. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're probably not going to do it. But instead of just being like, you know, that's probably not a good idea, I don't think I'm going to do it. Yeah. I would just, knowing you the way I know you, like, that's probably your strength versus my, you know, my weakness. And that's what I can improve on, is just being like, you know, yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
I'll tell you what you will gain with that is your time back. Yeah. Because if you kick it down the road, that just means you got to deal with it again. Right? Yeah. And so, yeah, you can get in the whole, like, oh, yeah, I respect the guy that blah, blah, blah. You know, like, but you are going to upset a couple of employees every now and again, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I got to be better at that. That's my new New Year's resolution.
Yeah, yeah. What's the 9th today? Your January 9th resolution. No, I love it. Well, hey, my friend, we gotta go get some lunch.
Sweet.
So
thanks.
So
for
I asked all
having
my
me.
guests though. You gotta give me your best 2 minutes of advice.
Oh, damn. You should have given me a little heads up on that one.
I love it organic, man. I love it organic. This is the first thing that popped in your head. I don't care if it's 10 seconds.
Best 2 minutes of advice. You know, just because it's New Year's and, I'll go back to what I've been thinking about. Like, for me, I've got to get my mornings right. I have a lot of goals. I want to accomplish a lot. And not everyone has to do it in the morning, but for me, it's that time when there's nothing else going on that I've got to be able to get right with my spirit. Like I've got to dial in and like get right with God, kind of get my angels on my side. And then my calendar is kind of the next thing. I got to just have a vision of my day. And then before anyone else wakes up, physically, I got to like do a workout. If I do those things, I just know if I'm consistent on that, then I will accomplish everything I want to accomplish. But, 5 a.m. every day is a little tough. So that would be my 2 minutes of advice. Go with me on the journey of taking your hour a day, maybe when there's not other stuff going on and the world's not awake yet, or maybe it's when the world goes to sleep, however you work. And for me, it's spirit, calendar, and physical health.
Nice.
There.
Well, thank you very much, man. That's awesome advice.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.